We begin today the Gemara on Daf Mem Hey Amud Aleph, 7 lines from the top of the Yamot. Said in the Mishnah, the halacha of the Egla Arufa regarding the Bezdin, the Zekanim from the Bezdin HaGadol in Yerushalayim that has to go out to do the Egla Arufa, and there was an argument between Rabbi Yehuda and the Tanakama if 3 of the Bezdin HaGadol go out or 5. So here it brings from a Braisa another opinion about this. Sagt the Gemara Maslis in the Lake Rabbi Yezer ben Yaakov. The Tanya we learn in a Braisa, Rabbi Yezer ben Yaakov Vaymer. Zikeinecha, when it says in the pasuk that the Zikeinim go out, Zu Sanhedrin. That means elders from the Sanhedrin. Shoiftecha ze melech the Kohen Gadol. Shoiftecha means that the king and the Kohen Gadol go out as well. What's the connection to the word Shoiftecha? Melech t'chsev, melech b'mishpat yamed aretz. By a king, it uses the term mishpat, justice, that he keeps the land and the government, everything in control with mishpat. Kohen Gadol d'chsev uvasa ala kohenim ala leviyim v'la shofet sheyeh v'goyme. So it says hashofet, and the Gemara here is teaching shofet refers to the Kohen Gadol that's on top of all the kohenim and the leviyim. So over here as well, shiftecha means that the melech and the Kohen Gadol have to come out as well. Shaila was asked regarding Rabbi Yezer ben Yaakov's opinion. Rabbi Yezer ben Yaakov, the melech v'Kohen Gadol hu depolik, is he arguing regarding this point that the melech and the Kohen Gadol have to come out as well? Aval b'Sanhedrin, when it comes to the Sanhedrin, how much of the Sanhedrin has to come out? Rabbi Yehuda. So that either he holds like Rabbi Yehuda that said that 5 have to come out, or he holds like Rabbi Shimon that only 3 of the Sanhedrin have to come out. So regarding that detail, he doesn't argue. Or perhaps b'Sanhedrin nami polik, that regarding the Sanhedrin, he also argues and he says, the ikke kul Sanhedrin. The entire Sanhedrin has to come out together with the king and the Kohen Gadol. Omar Rav Yosef, so Rav Yosef says here, there's a Braisa that could prove this, because Toshamat says, Motzon Zokim Mamre Abei Pagi. So Zokim Mamre is a Chacham that's paskening halachas, and he comes to the Bezdin HaGadol in Yerushalayim, the Bezdin of 71, to ask them a question, and they pasken for him, and then he goes back to his city, and he paskens the opposite, he rebels against the Psak Din of the Sanhedrin. That's called a Zokim Mamre. Now Zokim Mamre is Chayiv Misa, is Chayiv Chanek. So now this Zokim Mamre, if it was Abei Pagi, Rashi says, means that he was in the outer perimeters of Yerushalayim, and there he met the Bezdin HaGadol. He didn't go to the Beis HaMikdash where the Bezdin HaGadol usually sits, he meets them outside. And then V'himra Alein, he asked them a shaila, they paskened for him, and he went back to his city and he paskened different than them. I would think that this rebellion counts as a rebellion that would be chayiv misa for this. So Talmud Loima, the pasuk, when it speaks about the halacha of Zokim Mamre, it says v'kamta v'alisa el hamokim. You have to go up there. He went to the place to ask the Bezdin HaGadol a shaila in their place. This teaches us that the place being in the Beis HaMikdash, that causes that it should become a Zokim Mamre. But not if he found them, the Bezdin HaGadol, outside in the area of Yerushalayim. That's the Braisa. Now the question is, how does this happen that the whole Bezdin HaGadol is found outside Yerushalayim? First of all, you might ask, the Nafok Kama. How much of the Bezdin HaGadol went out from their place where they are in the Beis HaMikdash, and he met the Bezdin HaGadol there? If only some of them came out from their place, so then, and over there, they paskened for him and he rebelled against them. But he shouldn't become a Zokim Mamre for this anyways, not because of the place that he's not in the Beis HaMikdash. But it's not shaykh to say that he's a Zokim Mamre for a different reason. Because Dilma Hanoch, the Ikke Gavoi, maybe those that are still inside the Beis HaMikdash, Kavasei Svirilo, maybe they would agree to his reasoning. Maybe they would pasken like him. So you can't say that he rebelled against the Bezdin HaGadol. And the Rishonim here say, then it says in the Gemara Miktsasa, and it doesn't just mean a minority. Even if the majority came out. So seemingly if the majority already paskened one way, so it doesn't matter what the minority's opinion is. But no, they say that if the minority would have been there, he may have convinced that minority, and then the minority would have convinced the others as well, and he would have had the majority on his side. So Elopshit, we must say, the Nafuk Kulu, that we're talking over here about a situation where the entire Bezdin HaGadol all came out of Yerushalayim, and that's where this happened, that he paskened against the Bezdin HaGadol. But now the question is, why and how did they come out? Is a Bezdin HaGadol allowed to leave their place? Well, what do they come out for? If the Bezdin HaGadol just left for just any matter, not for a mitzvah, is the Bezdin HaGadol allowed to leave their place in the Beis HaMikdash? There's a pasuk in Shir Hashirim that says, Shrorech agan asar al yechzar mozek. What does this mean? Shrarich, so Rashi teaches this. Shrarich means just like in a person's body. So the shrarich, which is the navel, which is the center of the person, so too the Bezdin HaGadol in the Beis HaMikdash in Yerushalayim is the center of where the Torah goes out to the entire world. So therefore Shrarich goes on the Sanhedrin. Then when it says Agan Asar, this means that they sit in the Beis HaMikdash there in a half circle, like the moon, like a half moon. That's how they sit in the Beis HaMikdash. So they should be able to see one another. And then it says in the pasuk, Al Yechzar HaMozek. What does this mean? Do not allow that it should be lacking from the mezek, from a certain percent of the Bezdin HaGadol there. They can't all leave. Rashi explains, mezek means, just like when you have, in those times, you had wine. You had to dilute the strength of the wine, so it was 2/3 water and 1/3 wine. So what it's saying over here is that even if people of the Bezdin HaGadol have to leave, but there has to be at least 1/3 that's left in its place. If one has to leave, so then im yesham esrim v'shloisha keneget Sanhedrin ketana, if there's at least 1/3 that's left, which is 23 out of 71, so that number 23 is also the same number of the Sanhedrin ketana, the Sanhedrin that there was in every city was the number of 23. Yaitze, he's allowed to leave. V'mla v'ene yaitze. If not, he's not allowed to leave. There always has to be at least 23 left there, which is 1/3. So just that, by the way, this number 23 is not exactly 1/3, it's actually 23.6. That's what it is, okay, it's a drop off. But the Guraria says that if it's 23.6, it's closer to 24 than 23, so it should have been 24. So he says, no, but it can't be 24 because that's a Bezdin Shokol, that's even. Bezdin can never be even. So then you would have to bump it up to 25. So then 23 is closer than 25. Okay. The point is, you can't have the entire Bezdin leaving Yerushalayim. So where does this happen that it says that if this person the Zaken encountered the Bezdin HaGadol outside of the Beis HaMikdash? Ella says the Gemara Pshita, so it's obvious, the only case this could happen is L'dvar Mitzvah, that the Bezdin HaGadol came out for the purpose of a mitzvah. And what kind of a mitzvah? L'mai. Lav, don't you think? L'medidas egla, they came out because there was a story with the egla arufa, and they had to measure where this person died, which city is closer to, and according to who does the entire Sanhedrin have to come out. We know that it's not Rabbi Yehuda or Rabbi Shimon in our Mishnah, but Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. So this must be that Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says that the entire Sanhedrin has to come out. The entire Sanhedrin. No. 2/3 was regarding that pasuk Shorich, but over here we're saying that he encountered the entire Sanhedrin. Amalei Abaye, so Abaye answers, no, there's no raya from there. Loi, Dilme lo hoisif aleir vala azaris. There is another situation where the Bezdin HaGadol has to come out. If you want to add to the city of Yerushalayim, or you want to add to the Azara of the Beis HaMikdash. Now this is real Kedusha that you're adding it. It's not just a matter of adding to the border of the city, but to be allowed to eat the kachim in the city of Yerushalayim and to add to the border or to add to the Azara, for that you have to have the whole Sanhedrin there. So maybe that's what happened. The Sanhedrin came out for that purpose. Keditnan, as we learned in the Mishnah, you cannot add to the city of Yerushalayim or to the Azara, you have to have a Bezdin of 71 there to add. So therefore, there's no raya from here that this is talking about the Bezdin coming out for the purpose of Egla Rufa. But nevertheless, the Gemara says, Tanya kvasei de Rav Yosef. We did learn in a Braisa that says, like the raya that Rav Yosef tried to bring. Here the Braisa spells out, Motzon Abeis Pagi. This Chacham, or the Zaken, encountered the Bezdin HaGadol of Yerushalayim, Abeis Pagi, on the outside perimeters of Yerushalayim, V'himra Alein, and he rebelled against their Psaktin. And the Braisa says, when was the Bezdin HaGadol there? They came out to measure regarding the halach of Egla Rufa, or to add to the city or to the Azara. I would think that if he rebels against them when they're not in their place, he would be a Zaken Mamre. That you have to be in the place in Beis HaMikdash, then he becomes a Zaken Mamre. But you see here clearly in this Braisa that the entire Bezdin HaGadol comes out to measure the place where the dead body was found for the halacha of Egla Rufa. It said in the Mishnah, Nimtza Tomon Begal Oitoli Be'ilon, if the dead body is found covered in a pile of rocks, or he's found hung on a tree, so then the din of Egla Rufa does not apply. Says the Gemara, Leimas Nisan Rabbi Yehuda, shall we say that our Mishnah follows the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda? V'loi Rabbanon, and not the opinion of the Rabbanon, the Tanya B'lert Nabraisa. This is the mitzvah of Shikha, which is when a person is gathering the bundles of grain in his field, and he forgets a bundle. What happens then? the mitzvah is to leave it for the poor people. So the pasuk says, "V'shachachta omer basada." You forgot the bundles in the field. What do you learn out from the word basada? Parat l'tomon. This excludes if it was covered. If it's covered and then that's how you forgot it, then the mitzvah of shikha does not apply. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, this is how Rabbi Yehuda translates the word basada. In other words, basada according to him means on top of the field, not when it's covered. The Chachamim say no. Basada it means l'rabes es ataman. Basada means even if it's inside the field, even then the mitzvah of shikha does not apply. So what's the Gemara saying over here as well? It does apply. Sorry. So what's the Gemara saying over here as well regarding Egla Arufa? The Mishnah said that the limud that Tomon, if the body is found covered, the mitzvah of Egla Arufa does not apply, is because it says Ba'adama. So the question is, how do you teach Ba'adama? So seemingly our Mishnah is teaching like Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says Ba'adama means above the ground, not inside. But according to the Chachamim, Ba'adama should be translated even inside, even if it's Tomon. Amar Rav, so Rav answers, no, it's lav dafka according to Rabbi Yehuda. Afilu teimer Rabbanan, I can tell you that our Mishnah follows the Rabbanan. Why? Can't compare basode to ba'adama because hacha me'nyani dekra and hasa me'nyani dekra. In each place, you have to darshan the word, not only based on the word itself, but the context of the pasuk. And what's the context of the pasuk? Because over there, the chsiv or the bach adds hacha me'nyani dekra. So it's the chsiv. The pasuk says ki yimotze cholol. You find the person that's slain. So what does it mean? When you read first the words ki yimotze cholol, so that sounds like heichad mishtakach. No matter where you find him. That includes even if you find him in a hidden place, covered, the mitzvah of Egla Arufa should apply as well. That's the beginning of the pasuk. Now, when the pasuk adds this word ba'adama, why is it adding this word ba'adama? It has to be telling you something new here. So what's it telling you? Here it's saying prat l'tomon. Ba'adama means above the ground, and that excludes if he was covered. That's the only way to understand the ba'adama here, because if it's coming to say that it includes even a person that's covered, that I would know from the beginning of the pasuk. It already says ki matzichala. Ki matzichala means no matter where he's found. So over here, the context of the pasuk shows that ba'adama is coming to exclude if he's hidden, covered. Now, but v'hasa menyana dekra, when it comes to the pasuk by the mitzvah shikha, there, if you look in the context of the pasuk, so it sounds like the Rabbanan are darshaning, because the pasuk begins there and says ki siktzar k'tzircha b'sotcha. That if you reap a reaping in your field, v'shachachta oimer, and you forget the oimer. So what's the understanding of this pasuk? Shikha dumya de kotzer, that the mitzvah of shikha is similar to the kotzer, to the reaping. Ma kotzer begolit, just like the grain that grows is revealed, it's open, it's not covered. Av shikha begolit. So too I understand from the pasuk itself that the mitzvah of shikha would apply to the bundles that are revealed. So then, when the pasuk adds the extra word basade or bisodcha, koser rachmana bisade, lerabis is ataman. Then when it writes the word basade, so it has to be adding something. This extra word, what is it adding? It's coming to tell you, koser rachmana basade, lerabis is ataman, to say that even if it is hidden and concealed, you still chayiv in the mitzvah shikha. The beginning of the pasuk would indicate that only if it's open, like when you reap, that's when you chayiv. So then the word basad over here has to mean that it's adding something that even if it's inside, even if it's covered, you're going to be marbet toman. So therefore, in each place, the pasuk is darshan on it according to its context. So this is the explanation for the Rabbanan. So now the Gemara comes back to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi Yehuda, Nami, typically mishikha dumya de kotzer. Why is he saying that the word basada comes to say that if it's above, that when it's exposed, that's when you chayiv in the mitzvah? Don't you see that, like the Rabbanan point out, when you see in the pasuk, it says shikha dumya de kotzer, that it says that it's like the reaping, that it has to be exposed. So why doesn't he learn it from there? And then he should come to the same conclusion as the Rabbanan, that basada means when it's covered. So the Gemara says, en hachanami. That's taka true, that according to Rabbi Yehuda, the source that you chayiv on the mitzvah of shikha only when it's exposed is learned from what it says, shikha dumya de kotzer, that it has to be open like the reaping itself. Now, ve'ela, if so, ba sadeh lomali, according to Rabbi Yehuda, so what do you learn from this word, ba sadeh? If you're not learning from the word ba sadeh to include even something that's hidden, so what do you learn from there? Answers the Gemara, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you learn something else from there. L'rabbis shikchas kama, that not only if you forget bundles that were already cut, but even bundles that you forgot to cut them, they're still standing. They're connected to the ground. The mitzvah of shikha applies to that as well. That's what basada means, that it's still connected to the field. Rabbanan, according to Rabbanan, shikchas kama minalahu. Since the Rabbanan learn out from Basada to say that it's even if it's hidden. So from where do they learn out this halacha of even if it's still standing in the field that the din of shikha applies? Nafkaluhu, they learn it out mi chisiktzar ktsircha besotcha. That it could have just said Basada. Why does it say besotcha in your field? So from this you can learn two things. You learn from Basada to say that it excludes, that it includes, that is, Tamun. But you also learn out from Basotcha that the extra Chaf, that it also includes this Tvur that's still standing before it's cut. Rabbi Yehuda, now according to Rabbi Yehuda, Mibayale, what does he learn out from the fact that it says Basotcha? Rabbi Yehuda Mibayale ked Rabavo, Amar Rab Elazar. He needs this to teach me the halacha that Rabbi Vo said in the name of Rabbi Elazar. Dam Rabbi Vo, Omer Rabbi Elazar, Prat l'shetzafu oimrin l'toich zdei chaveirai. That you learn out that this is coming to exclude the case where a person's bundles of his tefua, what happened to them? A wind blew them out from your field and it went into your friend's property. And that's why you forgot them. You forgot them because they were not in your property, so you didn't realize them. In such a case, you're not going to be chayiv in the mitzvah of shikha to leave them there, because it has to be besot cha. Has to be. He learns that from the chaf that it's afka if it's in your field. V'rabbanon mi basode basot cha. The Rabbanan learn out from the word basode and basot cha. So I think I may have made a mistake before that. Before the limud was from the v'shachachta. From before the ktsircha, basatcha, vishachachta, right? The siksa ktsircha, yeah. Before the drasha, according to the Rabbana, shikchas kama minalahu, because it says basatcha vishachachta. So from that you learn out from the dimyon of basatcha vishachachta, you learn out even when it's standing in the field. Over here is what the Gemara says that according to the Rabbanon, you learn out from the extra chaf that it has to be dafke in your field, not if the bundles. The wind blew them into someone else's field. That's the extra pasuk. Now, Rabbi Yehuda, basade, basatcha, loy mashmale. According to Rabbi Yehuda, he doesn't hold of this extra. We don't dash in this extra chaf in the word separately. So therefore, he only dashes from the word basatcha, just this halacha, that if it goes into someone else's field. Okay, this is the conclusion of the explanation of the machlokes of Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanon, whether you chayiv in the mitzvah of shikha when the bundles were left in the field and they were covered. Okay, but now, since we brought up this mitzvah of shikha, the Gemara brings over here a few different discussions about this mitzvah. Rabbi Yirmiyah asked the shaila, what happens if you have bundles that grew in your field and the wind blew them up and they're not lying on the ground in your field anymore? They're lying on top of a rock, on top of something else, but they're sort of in the air. They're not lying on the ground. So the question is, Mahu, what's the halacha? Are you chayiv in the mitzvah of shikha or not? Do I say aver sadeh kisade dami? Being in the airspace of your field is like being in the field itself. So you're chayiv. Or lav kisade dami? Or it's not like being in the field itself. The basis of this question is, obviously the airspace of a person's field is part of his field. He owns it. It's his space. But the question is, over here it says ba'adama. So therefore the question is, being in the air, does that qualify for the lashon of ba'adama? Amalei Rav Kahana le Rav Papi. So Rav Kahana, it's on a rock. It's like positioned higher, but it's like sort of in the air.
Connected to the ground?
No.
Oh, you cut it right.
Amalei Rav Kahana le Rav Papi, v'amri lo Rav Kahana le Rav Zvit. Tivshet lei med Rav Avo, Amar Rav Elazar. We could resolve this shaila from the statement that we brought before that Rav Avo said in the name of Rav Elazar the Omar. What did he say? That we learn from the word besatcha, prat l'shetzafuru oimrin l'toich stei chaveirei. That the word basatcha excludes when the bundles of your tefua blew into your property, the property of your friend. So what do we understand from that? The chaveiroi in. Over there, it's also talking about safu. Safu means it blew up into the air, meaning that it's not anymore lying on the ground. So over there, we're saying only if it's in your friend's property, then I say that you're going to be potter. But it sounds like though that if the wind picked up the bundles and it blew it onto a higher place and it's in a rock or somewhere not on the ground, but it's in your property, then it's not excluded. Then you will be chayiv. That's what we could learn out from the way Rabbi Elazar said this din. But the Gemara does not accept this answer here. Well, the time, according to your reasoning, the way you're learning this out, when it says that if your bundles went into your friend's property, Tzafu in Menachem Lai? Do you think that when Rabbi Elazar said that it blew, Tzafu, it floated, it blew into your friend's property, that not only if it lands over there in your friend's property on a rock, it's not lying on the Adama itself, only then will you be potter, but Menachem, if it goes into your friend's property, and it is lying on the ground itself, so then, you're not going to be potter. But how can you say that? The pasuk says, what's the limit? That you only chayiv in the mitzvah of shikha if it's in your field, not if it's in your friend's field. It doesn't make a difference if it's in your friend's field in the air or if it's in your friend's field lying on the ground there. Either way, you should be pater, because it's not in your property. So therefore, the point that the Gemara is trying to make is that when Rabbi Elazar used the expression of tzafu, that it flew over there, it doesn't mean that only if it's in the ear over there, then you're going to be pater. And now you can make a diok from the tzafu in your friend's field to say that if it's tzafu, that if it's in the ear in your own field, you'll be chayer. The whole lashon of tzafu here is lav dafke. Ela letoich zdei chaveroi afilu munachin. When he speaks about your bundles that go into your friend's property, that means even if it's lying on the ground. The only reason he uses the term tzafu, that it floated or that it flew there, the only way it gets to your friend's property is if the wind picks it up and blows it there. But he's not talking about the inyan of tzafu b'chlal. He's talking about a bundle that's found in your friend's property, either in any way. So therefore, there's nothing to be medayik from there to the case that we're talking about over here. We're talking about a case where the bundles are floating or is in the air in your property. So there's no connection. There's no raya from there. Tashema, the Gemara brings a raya from another case, from a braisa that says, what happens? A person, he's gathering the bundles, and he picked up a bundle to take it with him into the city. But then, he put down this bundle on top of another bundle in his field. And then, he forgot both of these bundles there, one on top of the other. So the halacha is, the Tanakama says, shikha. So the bottom bundle that you left there will be shikha. The top bundle will not be shikha. Both of them are not going to be shikha. The bottom bundle will not be shikha, like we said before, the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, that if it's covered, then there's no shikha for that. The ha'el yain and the top bundle will not be shikha mipnei shehutzaf, because the top bundle is not lying on the ground; it's hovering. It's on top of another bundle. So what does the Gemara say? So we see here clearly a raya to the question that we asked when the bundle is not lying on the ground. And the Gemara explains, At kan the argument between the Tanakama and Rab Shimon was regarding the bottom bundle, the one that's covered, whether the bundle which is covered is chayv and shikha or not. When it comes to the top bundle, seems to be that both are agreeing that the top bundle is not shikha. And what's the reason? Because it's tough, because it's floating, it's not lying on the ground itself, it's not ba'adama. Says the Gemara, no, there's no raya from there. Why not? Shani Hasam, that case is different. What does the Braisa say in the beginning? That the person picked it up already. Kivin the achzik bey, since he had already picked up this bundle, zachabe, he's already zaych in it. Even though he put it back down, but he had originally picked it up. So it's not considered to be shikha, he didn't forget it, he picked it up once. Says the Gemara, so one second, if the point of here is that because he already picked it up, that's why it's not shikha, so why is it saying that he placed it back down on another bundle? Even if you just placed it down anywhere in the field, it should not be shikha either, because he picked it up once and he already zaych in it. Says the Gemara, you're right, and a chanami. True, this is the same halacha would be if you put it down anywhere in the field. But the only reason it says it, that he put it onto another bundle, because it also wanted to teach me the halacha regarding the bottom bundle. The machlekes, whether tamun is potter of the shikha or not. Okay, but regarding the top bundle, everybody agrees that it'll be potter because it's not lying on the ground itself. It's lying on top of another bundle. So I see that it's... So the Gemara, again, the Gemara wanted to bring a raya regarding the top bundle, but what did the Gemara answer? The Gemara says there's no raya from the top bundle because he already picked it up. That's the reason why it's potter, not because it's soft, but because he held on to it. But the Gemara says that's not what it says in the Braisa. The Braisa clearly says the reason he's potter is because it's floating, because it's not lying on the ground. The Gemara answers that's not how you have to understand this word of tzof. It's like it's floating. What the Braisa means to say is, once you held on to that bundle, even if you put it back down, you don't have to hold on to it constantly. It's like you're holding it the whole time. Soft means it's like it's not on the ground anymore. It's like it's still in your hands. You already zeich in it. That's what the Braisa means to say. But a bundle which you never picked up, and it's lying on a rack somewhere, lav dafki you put it from the mitzvah of shikha. So the Gemara does not resolve the shaila from here. Amar Abaye said, Hareini ki ben Azai b'shukei Tveria. Today, I'm like Ben Azai when he was in the marketplace of Tveria. Right? In other words, he says, I have a clear mind and I can answer any shaila in halacha like Ben Azai, which was in Shukei Tveria. Rashi says he was very sharp and he was able to darshan even out in the street in the Shukim of Tveria. And the same thing Ben Abaye here said, and where he was in the city of Pumpadisa. Okay, so he's challenging anybody. Ask me any question, I'll give you an answer. So one of the Rabbanan asks Abaye a sophisticated question. If you have two slain bodies that are found, one on top of the other. Now you have to measure. You have to measure to the city to see which it's closest to. From which one of these two bodies does he measure? From the top body or the bottom body? They're not positioned exactly the same, and it can make a difference to which city it would be closer. Now what's the shaila here? So there's two things that this is dependent on. First of all, the question is, Min b'minoi havet tomun. Do I say that because the bottom body is being covered by the top body, so even though they're both bodies, but nevertheless it's being covered? It says so the bottom body is covered, and if it's covered, the Mishnah says there's no halacha of measuring for egla arufa by something which is covered. That's one point. Another point, umin b'minoi lo havet sof. And the top body is considered to be lying directly on the ground. Even though it's not, it's lying on top of another body, but because it's on another body which is the same min, it's considered to be like lying directly on the ground itself. And then, so you have to measure from the top body. That's one approach. A second approach, or perhaps we could say, no, min b'minoi havet sof. When you have two bodies, one lying on the other, because the top body is not lying directly on the ground, so it's like hovering. And then there's no halacha of measuring aglarufa, like when it's floating on the water. And on the other hand, but when you have two bodies, one is covering the other, the bottom one, because it's being covered by the same min, by another body, it's not considered to be covered. And therefore, what's the conclusion? So you would have to measure from the bottom body. Now, a third approach you can actually say, or perhaps we should say, that the bottom body is considered to be covered, even though it's covered by another body which is the same min. And we could also say, and the top body is not lying directly on the ground because it's lying on top of another body. So therefore, there's no din of egla rufa here at all. You don't measure not from the bottom body. You don't measure not from the top body either. That's the shaila, okay? So we got enough of a sophisticated question for him. Amalei, so Abaye answered, Tenisua. We could learn this out over here from the Braisa. The Braisa says, as you quoted before, a person grabbed onto the bundle and he wanted to take it to the city, but then he forgot it. He placed one bundle on top of another bundle, and he forgot it there. So it says, the bottom bundle will be shikha, but the top bundle is not shikha. Both of them will not be shikha. The bottom one is not shikha because it's hidden, it's covered. The top one is not shikha because it's not lying directly on the ground. It's hovering above another bundle. Okay, so that's the Braisa. Now, so what are we trying to learn out from here? So the Gemara explains from here we can answer the shaila regarding when you have something that's covered by its same min, whether it's called tamun. How? So Savrua, the yeshiva students that heard Abaye bringing this Braisa, they thought Tahani Tanoi Rabbi Yehuda Svirulhu. Both of the Tanoim in this Braisa agreed to Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, the Omar Basada Pratla Tamun. That from Basada we learn now that there's no shikha when it's covered, when it's hidden. So now, what is their argument? Why then should the bottom bundle be chayiv and shikha? My love, don't you think that they're arguing as follows? The Mar Savar Mim Biminoi Havetomun. That the Tanakama says that, or rather, Rab Shimon that says that the bottom bundle is not shikha because it's tamun, it's covered. Even though it's min b'minai, it's being covered by another bundle that's on top of it, the same min, but it's still considered to be tamun. Omar Savar lo yavet tamon. And the Tanakama says that no, because it's being covered by the same min, so that's not called covered. It's all like considered to be one big bundle of grain. So it's not called covered. So here we see that they're arguing about this, whether being covered by the same min is considered to be covered or not. So Rashi points out the Gemara is only bringing a raya regarding the Shiloh of Tamun, even though seemingly this Bryce is talking about Tzof as well. Why doesn't it bring a raya regarding the top bundle that is Tzof, whether it's considered to be lying on top of the ground or not? Says Rashi, the Gemara already before said that the pshat of Tzof over here does not mean Tzof. It means that Kit Tzof because he grabbed onto it. Once he holds it, so it's not called Shikha. That's regarding the top one. So we can't bring any raya from that. Okay, so the Gemara says, Loi, you can't bring any raya from here. Why not? If both of these Tanaim and this Braisa would agree to Rabbi Yehuda that Tamun is potter of Shikha, the Kula min b'minav Tamun. Everybody would agree that even when it's being covered by another bundle, which is the same min, it's called covered. Here, the argument is the same argument we had before between the Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda, whether Tamun is chayiv or potter from Shikha. The Rabbanan, the opinion of the Rabbanan here is the same Rabbanan quoted before that says that Tamun is chayiv and Shikha. But Rab Shimon ben Yehuda, Rab Yehuda, and Rab Shimon ben Yehuda holds like his father Rab Yehuda that says that Tamun is potter. That's what the argument is about. Says the Gemara, Hachi my area al gabi chaveirei. So if the argument here is all about Tamun, whether Tamun is chayiv or potter, so then that should be an argument when it's covered in any way. Why is it saying that it was covered by another bundle which is the same min? It could say this machlekes regarding the halacha of Tamun, even if it's covered with earth or with pebbles. Says the Gemara, you're right, enochanami. It could have said the machlekes regarding that, because that's really what their machlekes is about. But it's coming to say how strong Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is. The Amar that even min b'minoi is Tamun. So it's coming to say his opinion, how to what extent it goes. But the point the Gemara is trying to say is that you can't say that this is dependent on a machlekes. That min b'minoi, it's a machlekes whether it's called Tamun or not. If you hold that Tamun is potter, min b'minoi is considered to be Tamun. We learned in the Braise, Cholol, the pasuk says, you find a slain body, so that's when the mitzvah of Egla Rufa applies. What do we learn from this? V'loy chanuk, not if the body was strangled. So Cholol means only if he was killed by a sword or by some other metal thing that killed him. That's the meaning of slain. Cholol, and Cholol we learn that also, V'loy mefarfer, not if he's not dead yet, if his body is still shaking. So some say that means that when you find him shaking, even if he later dies, still the Egla Rufa, the mitzvah will not apply. But others say that no, if later he dies, the mitzvah does apply. Now when it says Ba'adoma, from this we learn out, V'loy Tomon Begal, not if he's covered, as we brought before. Neufel, he's fell, V'loy Tole Bilo, not if he's hanging on a tree. Basodeh means V'loy Tzof Op Ne'amayim, in the field, not if he's floating on the water. Rabbi Lazar says, B'kulon im hoya cholol erfin. Regarding all these different scenarios, the only thing that matters here is the fact that he was slain. As long as he was slain with a sword or something like that, the mitzvah of Egla Rufa applied. And it doesn't matter if he was underwater, if he's hanging, those details he does not hold of. Tanya, so on the Braise we learned about this argument here. The Rabbanan argued with Rabbi Lazar and they said to him, so don't you agree, if this body was found that was strangled, or mutal bashpa, if he was found just lying in the garbage, that over there the mitzvah of Egla Rufa does not apply. Why? Alma. So we see cholol v'loy chanuk, that we take the word of the pasuk and we understand it literally, and we darshan that it excludes a person that was chanuk, that he was strangled and he wasn't killed with a sword or something like that. So we do darshan the word of the pasuk. So hachanami, if so, they asked Rabbi Lazar, ba'adama v'loy tomun begal neufel. Again, ba'adama v'loy tomun begal. Ba'adama you should darshan, not if he's covered. And neufel you should darshan v'loy toli be'ilon, not if he's hanging. And basada v'loy tzaf al gabi mayim. Why don't you darshan the other words literally as well? Just like you agree that you darshan the word cholol. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Lazar cholol yisayre ksiv. The answer that Rabbi Lazar gives to this is, there is an extra time that it says cholol in the pasuk. The pasuk there actually says many times the word cholol, but there's one time where it says the word cholol extra, and that comes to be marbe, even people that are hanging or on the water and other situations, that the mitzvah of Egla Rufa will still apply. The Mishnah said, you find a body near the border of Eretz Yisrael or near a city which is a bunch of Goyim living there. So the mitzvah of Eglah Rufa does not apply. Why not? Says the Gemara, if you encounter this person that died, which means prat lemotzei, excludes a person that's found near a city of Goyim, and he's found dead there. So there you know that the Goyim killed him, and this is something that happens unfortunately more often, that the Goyim kill. So therefore over there, the mitzvah of Eglah Rufa does not apply. If it's a city that there's no bezdin, so then the mitzvah of Eglah Rufa does not apply with that city. The beina ziknei ha'ir veleke, the elders of the city have to come out, and therefore if there's no bezdin here, so you can't do the mitzvah. Then the Mishnah said, the Mishnah said again that you don't measure to a city unless it has a bezdin. So the Gemara asks, why is the Mishnah saying this again? Pshita, this is obvious. Keeping the tonal yishem ba bezdin. If it says that if there's a city that there's no bezdin, so then there's no mitzvah of Eglah Rufa. So I understand that you can't measure to a city that has no bezdin. So the Gemara answers, ha kamash malon. What the Mishnah here is teaching me is as follows. Kidatanya, we learned in a Braisa. Minayin, from where do I know? Shem nimtza samach liyishem ba bezdin. If you find a dead body near a city that does not have a bezdin. So what do? So you may think that the whole mitzvah of Eglah Rufa doesn't apply at all. So the Braisa says, no, that's not the case. What do? Shemanichin oisa. So you leave this city, but then you measure the body to the closest city that does have a bezdin. So the mitzvah still applies. That the elders of that city, Mikol Makayim, we learn from there that you take the elders from that city, no matter where. Rashi says ha'ir, that's an extra word over here, and that comes to say that if the city that's closest has no bezdin, so the closest city with the bezdin has to come and measure, and that's what the Mishnah meant to say. You don't measure to the city that has no bezdin, meaning, but you do measure to another city that does have a bezdin. What happens if the body was measured and it's found to be exact, right, close to two cities, the same exact distance? So then both of these cities have to bring the Eglah Rufa. So the mitzvah is done for both cities. This is Rabbi Eliezer's opinion. Another halacha says the Mishnah, Yerushalayim Evia Eglah Rufa. For Yerushalayim, there's no mitzvah of Eglah Rufa. You'll have to measure to a different city. The head of the body is found in one place. The body is found in a different place. So you bring the head to the body. That's Rabbi Eliezer's opinion. No, you bring the body to the head. The Gemara will explain regarding what this halacha is. Now, from which place in the body do they measure to see to which city it's closer? Rabbi Eliezer says from the center of the body, from the navel. Rabbi Akiva says from the nose. From the place where he was slain, which is mitzavara. Usually a person is killed, it's mitzavara from his neck. The Gemara will bring the source of all this. Talk the Gemara, my time at the Rabbi Eliezer, what's the reasoning for Rabbi Eliezer, and what's the chiddush here? Rabbi Eliezer says you can measure the body to two cities, and it can be equal distance to both cities. Says the Gemara, Kesavar, Rabbi Eliezer's opinion is, number one, efshel etzamtzem, that you can do a precise measuring, and it should come out exactly to be the same to both cities. There's no suffix about this. It could actually be the fact. And that's one point. Now, another chiddush of Rabbi Eliezer is, when the pasuk says that the city that it's closest to should bring the Eglah Rufa, even though it uses a singular term, we understand this also to mean even plural, even if it's the same close to two cities, they both have to bring the Eglah Rufa. That's Rabbi Eliezer's opinion. So Rashi here explains that those that disagree with him and say that efshel etzamtzem, meaning when they measured, it's impossible that you should measure precisely that it should be the same to both cities. So there's a suffix really which city it's closer to. So therefore, both of these cities are going to have to bring an Eglah Rufa, but they're going to bring just one. And there's a suffix which city it belongs to. So then the people are going to have to say, if it belongs to our city, then this Eglah Rufa is yours, or if it belongs to the other city, they're going to have to bring one misafik. That's another opinion on this that Rashi brings there. Then the Mishnah said, "Ve'in Yerushalayim mevi Eglah Rufa." By Yerushalayim there is no Eglah Rufa. Why not? No makra lerishta. The pasuk says that the Eibusha gave you the cities to inherit regarding Eglah Rufa. So now Ksava, the town of this Mishnah holds Yerushalayim le'nischalka l'shvatim. Yerushalayim was not divided amongst the shvatim. There's an argument about this, but this Tana holds that Yerushalayim was not divided, so the mitzvah doesn't apply. This argument regarding whether the head goes to where the body is or the body goes to where the head is, regarding what are they arguing? If you're going to say they're arguing regarding from where are you going to measure to which city, closer to the head or the one that's closer to the body. Says the Gemara, that can't be, because the next din of the Mishnah addresses that clearly. From where do you measure? The klal, the reisha loy b'medidaskina. So over here, when it discusses the head versus the body, it's not discussing regarding measuring to the city. So what is it talking about? Rabbi Yitzchak says it's talking about a different thing. B'mes mitzvah kana mekaymai kamifliki. It's arguing about the halacha of a mes mitzvah. When a mes mitzvah is found, he has to be buried. One of the conditions Yeshua made when he came into Eretz Yisrael is that when you find a mes, he's buried right there in the place where he's found. It becomes his place. So here, there's an argument, where is the place of this mess? So the shaila is regarding him to be buried, that he acquires his place to be buried there. So if his head is found in one place and the body is found in a different place, Rabbi says you follow the place of the body and that's where he's buried. No, you take the body to the place where the head is and that's where he's buried. What's the basis of the argument? The question really is, what happened? Where did this person really die? Mar Savar, Gufe, Beduchte Nofal. So Rabbi Eliezer says, what happened is the body, that's where it fell, that's where he died. They should not even Nofal. But the head rolled away. So therefore you have to bring the head back to the body and that's where he gets buried. But Mar Savar, Rabbi Kiva says, no, it's possible that what happened is, Reisha Heichad Nofal Nofal. The head, when the person was killed, if the person was killed, so someone with a sword knocked off his head, so where his head fell, that's where he died. But Gufu Deroit Vazel, this person was running away, and his body sort of ran and went a little bit further away, so therefore the body has to be brought back to where the head is. Then the Mishnah says, Me'ayin hayu maididim. From where do you measure the person's body to see to which city it's closer to? So the Mishnah brought three opinions about this. So the Gemara explains the basis of their machlekes. What are they arguing about? Mar Sovar. So the first opinion here is the opinion that says, or it's actually the second opinion. It's interesting, the Gemara explains first Rabbi Kiva's opinion. Rabbi Kiva says you measure from the nose. The main life of a person is in the nostrils, the nose, where a person breathes from. So that's where you measure from. When the person died, chalal, so he dies, it's by the nose. The first opinion in the Mishnah, Rabbi Eliezer says you measure from the navel because the main chayes of the person comes from the center, the stomach of the person. So that's the argument here. So the Gemara says, shall we say these two opinions regarding the main chayes of a person is based on the following two opinions here. It says, from where is the body created? That is the fetus. When the fetus is formed and it begins, from where does it begin? So the first opinion here is it starts from the head. We learn this from the pasuk where it says, from my mother's womb, I was cut out. So what do we learn from this term geizi? It says in another pasuk, geizi nezercha v'ashlichi. So geizi nezercha refers to the head of a nazir, you cut off the hair. So you see that the word geizi hints to the head. So from this we understand that a fetus is formed from the head first. Abishal says mitibure. No, the fetus is formed from the tibure, from the navel. And from there, the fetus develops to all the rest of the body, all the extremities. So we see here that there's an argument whether the person is born first from his head or from the navel. So we could say that this is the argument here regarding the life of the person. Is it mainly in the nose, in the head of the person, or in the stomach? Says the Gemara, no, it's not connected. I can say that even according to Abishol, the head of the person, the nose of the person is the main chayes. Regarding the fetus being created, so on that he says, that the fetus is created first from the navel, from the middle. But when it comes to the life, the person's breath, the kula alma ba'apihu, everybody agrees that the breath comes from the nose. That a person breathes from the nose, from the nostril. So therefore that's the main place of the chayes of the person. There was a third opinion in the Mishnah, from where you measure from the dead body. You measure from the place that he was slain, and it's from his neck. By time that Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, This pasuk you see that when a person is slain, it's usually by the neck, and therefore that's from where this person's body is measured to the city.